Hi, I'm Brian McLaughlin and this is Deep Thought Balloon, little videos about comics, stories, pop culture, and other stuff. In the last video we talked about generating wordplay ideas, but how can you write jokes that lean towards other flavors of humor? Let's learn about slapstick, nonsense, potty humor, and dark humor. Some people say that puns are the lowest form of comedy, but it's actually probably slapstick. It's the easiest to understand across languages, so it has a low bar for entry. It's also easy for you to take advantage of as a cartoonist. I'd recommend looking at some animation tutorials on stretch and bounce to see how they really make things look silly. One thing a lot of animation doesn't do, though, is go off model. They have a team of animators working on a project and they want their hero to look the same throughout. But as a singular cartoonist, you have the opportunity to do some weird versions of your heroes. You don't need to draw them exactly as they normally look. The more realistic your comic character is, the harder it gets to pull off slapstick. You may want to add a rubbery body character along the lines of Plastic Man or Luffy to be your slapstick comedy relief if that's the case. To plan a slapstick bit, it's probably best to think of it like Jackie Chan and examine your environment and use it to come up with new gags. How would it be interesting for someone to trip and fall in a kitchen? In a graveyard? In a gym? What would be funny for them to land on or in? What would be fun to send flying as they get up? Where would that land? Your settings will lead you through your slapstick story if you look for things to interact with. Actually go to a place or image search it so you can see what's there. Don't rely on memory. Remember how we don't picture a room's outlets and book spines? Your kitchen might not even have a rolling pin, but if you see one online or in a bakery, you might suddenly realize that's the thing you need. It's also good to set up the person who's on the receiving end of the slapstick as deserving of it. When Bugs Bunny goes after Elmer Fudd or Yosemite Sam, it's because they came after him first. Comedians talk about punching up, meaning going after those in power, but of course that's a matter of perspective. In a David and Goliath story, Goliath might be thinking, "I'm as big as a barn. How's that little guy gonna miss me? I'm doomed." It's easy to tell you not to make fun of people who have less power than you, but it's a whole other thing for you to successfully examine your life and figure out where you're honestly the underdog. It's easy to feel like the victim because you're the hero in your story, and you may not have taken the time to really see, recognize, and accept why things are the way they are. Nonsense is another form of humor with a low bar to understand. Kids will laugh at you using a banana for a hat before they know how to say banana. Picking out absurd or weird things can be fun surprises, especially if you're working with a younger audience who won't get your play on words about cold, hard cash, because they don't even understand money, let alone the phrase. I've read enough picture books for kids thick with puns that relying on them to make little kids laugh is a proper pet peeve of mine now. I talked a bit about nonsense in one of my other comedy videos that mentions close percentage. That it's good to search for a contrasting word in sound and meaning. Another way to help come up with nonsense is to keep a list of words that you think sound fun to say and hear. Bird feeder, lozenge, cupboard, 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 cupboard. What makes you smile? You can use a Mad Libs approach of writing your script where you ask people for random nouns and verbs to fill in your story. I like to find nonsense through adding unexpected adjectives like neon black or gourmet bicycle. Or just draw a picture and add words from an unrelated scene in another story. Visual nonsense will come from your sketchbook. What do you tend to doodle? Just adding a funny hat to something can lead to great results. Absurd cartoons don't necessarily have punchlines. It's more like it's opened a door and invited you to spend some time in the joke. It's not uncommon for a weird situation like that to haunt your imagination for years to come. And think about your nonsense words. Be sure they aren't just silly sounding because you come from another culture. You might be poking fun at someone's culture without realizing it. Absurd situations often work best when there's something dull for comparison. That's why it's James and the Giant Peach and not Ice Cream Elemental and the Giant Peach. If you want to do potty humor, I think the humor often comes across in the drawings, but it's also in finding new ways to say or draw old things. "I'm gonna barf" can be a funny line, but it's funnier to say, "I'm gonna uneat my lunch," or "I'm gonna gush tummy juice." Potty humor and swearing is often about not hiding a truth. We all poop, but we don't talk about it. A doctor will call it a stool sample or a bowel movement. A gardener calls it manure, a rancher calls it cow patties. When you use a swear word, you're drawing attention to the thing, like saying, "I'm not going to pretend your dog's mess on my porch is okay. This has to stop." It's saying, "You crossed a boundary, and I will cross one, so you're aware that I know what you did, and I will not put up with it." So it's funny if they say, "Your dog bowel movemented all over my porch," because the words don't match the violation. They're too doctory. And if a gardener says they're going to poop the flowers, it also sounds funny. Using the wrong euphemism can make the situation seem more ridiculous. Swearing in potty humor also tells the audience you're doing edgy comedy. Not that swearing itself is edgy, but that if you can't handle a four-letter word, you might not be ready for their take on capitalism or marriage. If you want to do black or dark humor like the Addams Family or Gahan Wilson, you'll need to have a good selection of spooky things and then realize how they work to tell a story. Usually dark topics are metaphors, like calling runway models skeletons and too much makeup. The visuals that come to mind are a shock, which add to the surprise of a joke. It's all about the benign violation theory, where you're going hard into the violation of death, disease, war, etc., and you need to find how to make it benign. One way is to use it to highlight the terrible things that are happening, but people seem to be okay to ignore, like making a gag where you point out the phrase collateral damage as weasel wording. You might also imagine grim characters in regular situations and see how that would change things. And we can laugh at the making of the macabre mundane. Black humor is often done by those people who haven't experienced the dark parts of life but find them fascinating. When people are facing death, they often joke, but it's usually not about death. We'll get more into how and why we joke in the next video. Good luck and keep thinking deep thought balloons.